The Sex Ed with Tim podcast is recorded on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands.
You're listening to Sex Ed with Tim.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sex Ed with Tim podcast. I'm your host, Tim. I'm a certified sex educator. I identify as a chaotic homosexual. And does anyone know the cure to sex addiction? Because I've tried fucking everything. But So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Well, not just sex addiction. I think there's a whole bunch of other problems that can arise in the bedroom, right, David? Like, not just being like a horn dog.
I'm going to steal that joke. That was a good one.
Go ahead. It's yours.
Thank you.
I will take no royalties whatsoever.
Okay.
So I have here David Khalili, licensed marriage and family therapist, but don't take my word for it. I'm going to let David introduce himself to us.
Hi, Tim. Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here. My name is David. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, board-certified sexologist, and I run a group practice in San Francisco, California, where we focus a lot on anxiety around sex, gender, and sexuality. And so we do individual sessions, partnered sessions, multiple partner sessions, and group therapy. And we just try to help people feel less shame, less shitty about themselves and who they are and how they like what they like.
Aw, so are most of your clients like queer people?
Yeah, queer people, first generation folks, BIPOC folks, people that have like an awareness of the multiple identities that they hold that may not interact so well, or, they may be like doubly marginalized or doubly discriminated against. And so they're both trying to like hold, all right, how can I be myself? And how can I be myself and who I am and my wonderful self? And also like, how do I set these boundaries with people so that they don't be shitty to me? I like saying the word shitty a lot. I've gotten some shit from therapists for using that word. Like, it's not clinical enough.
Please. Yeah. Like, I will be so insulted if you don't swear at least once.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
You mean to tell me queer people are not sexually adjusted that well?
Right.
You would think that we're so proud of ourselves, we'd be so free of shame, right?
Right. Yeah. It's so accepted and welcomed and yeah. Right.
Why is it that it's mostly queer people that are so like hiding shame? Or maybe I'm just like pulling that out of my ass, but like, what is it about queer people that need specific attention when it comes to sex therapy?
Yeah, I think and I know, and I've seen in my research and readings that like, a lot of the advice and the guidance and the research is based off of like white, cis, hetero, middle class, able-bodied folks who don't have transactional sex, right? That's another piece.
Transactional sex, like with money?
That's a very like sex workers. Yeah, they work with sex workers. Yeah, that's the very academic way of putting it. It's the I'll jump a little bit. There's a researcher. Her name is Gail Rubin. She talks about the charm circle, and the charm circle is people who have sex in the like Western approved ways. So heterosexual, only for procreation, not for money, in a marriage, and those are the protected class. And then people that are outside of that are known as in the outer limits, and those are the folks that their privileges are taken away based on who they are and how they like to be.
So those being like queer people or people who just have casual sex or something?
Queer people, casual sex people who have sex for money, people who are disabled, people who are lower class, lower socioeconomic class. Like, there's a lot of ways that sex is policed, and
which is
both
so
like literally
weird.
policed and
yeah,
right?
That's so weird because it's like I feel like that's literally the majority of the global population
Right.
that's just
Yeah.
fucking around and like anything with a pulse, they just want to put their body parts inside of it. Like,
Yeah.
wow,
It's
that
a
is
totally
weird.
normal, human thing, but it's very
Yeah.
much policed.
Okay, so speaking of normal, because I have this issue when it comes to the term sex addiction, and I want to talk about that in a
Mm.
little bit. But let's just rewind a little bit. I just want to
Mm.
lay some groundwork. What exactly is sex therapy, and what does it aim to remedy, and how does that differ from regular therapy?
Right. That's great. Yeah. So there's a few ways that sex therapists can become sex therapists. There's some certification programs, like ASECT or ASECT is the big one. I got my master's in sexuality studies and then a master's in counseling psych, and I've kind of combined those two and continue to do ongoing research. But sex therapy, it's the big thing that I like to say is, it doesn't include touch, but it is kind of talking about sex and talking about both the acts of sex and also sexual identity and the identities and the politics around sex and sexuality, because that can just be wrapped up so much in how a person is and how they're policed or discriminated against or welcomed or not. And so it's both looking at like sexual functioning, like how do we help your dick stay hard? How do we help you stay a nice receptive partner when you want it to, and when you're able to. But it's also about like identity and coming out and inclusion and belonging and politics and it's many other things other than just fucking. And fucking is wonderful and it's nice, but there's also other parts that we need to look at in order to help people have good sex.
Fucking is gross. Ugh, dirty.
I know it's
nasty.
goofy and it's
So much technicalities and mess and I'm a virgin, excuse me.
Oh well, okay. Well,
No, but
there's some things you should know.
there's some things that you should know about me, right? Never had sex in my life, never seen a penis, not even my own. No, but like when it comes to sex therapy, or rather like sexual problems, the first thing that I think of is the inability to get and stay hard. What are some
Right.
other sexual problems that can arise in the bedroom besides erectile dysfunction?
Yeah, premature ejaculation, delayed ejaculation, pain during sex. What's he right?
No, sorry, my face. Premature ejaculation, that can be considered a psychological thing?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought that
just
was more
because,
of a biological, physical thing.
well, it absolutely could be, but it's also like anxiety can cause premature ejaculation because of just this overstimulation.
Oh,
And then there's this release, there's kind of like a overwhelm and then a release.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's
So-
working on the anxiety and working on slowing people down. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, like, it's nice to ejaculate. I wouldn't see that as a problem because,
Yeah.
so,
Oh, that's
like,
another thing. Yeah.
right. Like for me, premature ejaculation sounds like, I don't know. Does that mean that there is a normal amount of time required
Right.
to have sex before you ejaculate? Like, that seems kind of policey to me.
Totally. And so I think that's the other piece about sex therapy or just therapy in general is, we are looking at like, what is the person coming to us with and how are they talking about their problems? Like if for them, it's really affecting their sense of well-being, having an issue with premature ejaculation. The way that I would work with that is I would assess what that meaning is for them. Like, why is it such an issue for them? Why does it hold so much power and shame or anxiety that they prematurely
Right.
ejaculate? And then B, I would work on normalizing it. And I would work on identifying other ways that they can get off, other ways that they can feel sexy, that they can get pleasure, they can give pleasure. That's my other big thing is like, is it actually a problem or is this a moral panic sort of thing that you were told that you shouldn't do this or be like this? Is it affecting other people in your life? And what are some other ways that you can diversify your repertoire of getting off?
Your sexual arsenal, your tool belt of fuckery.
The tool belt of fuckery. That's a good title.
Your horny constellation.
Uh-huh.
That'd be cute. No, because like that's what I mean, right? Like when we talk about sexual behavior as normal, quote unquote,
Right.
what is normal, right? Because
Right.
everybody experiences sex differently. Like, I don't know, for me, it takes me 30 minutes of sexual intercourse, and I can only come during ejaculation, and it takes me like half an hour until I come. And
Yep.
then for me, that's normal, but I guess
Hmm.
for someone else, that would mean a delayed ejaculation. So,
Right.
like, how do you figure out whether there's a problem present or not?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the big question, right? It's like, is it a problem for them? And what are they basing that problem off of? Like what belief system, what moral system, where are they coming from? Because yeah, it could be a big problem, big source of shame for someone. And I've talked to people who they can't come for 30 minutes, and it racks them. They're upset, right? They have an idea of that they should be able to come earlier, and but it just depends on that person. And so what it is then working on reducing the pressure from themselves. Like we're looking at like what's the underlying thing that's going on in their lives that's telling them
You
these
must come
shoulds.
now. You should be
Right.
able to get hard,
Right.
stay hard. You should do whatever.
Exactly. The guy. It's like get hard right away, stay hard for a long time, and when you come a lot. Those are like the
Yeah.
three pressure points.
Oh my God. So how do you go about like pinpointing the underlying cause of something so broad and so like abstract?
The origin story of their
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's well. There's two ways to go about it. One is like is trying to identify what's the cause of the underlying issue, and I'm a firm believer in that. And some therapists kind of focus on the here and now, but for those that look in the past, like I definitely think it's a lot of exploration of like, okay, so that's a narrative that you have, that's a belief that you have. When did you first hear that? Like one of my first things that I do with people, either in individual relationship or group therapy, is go around and say some of the messages that they've received growing up, either directly or indirectly, about sex, about their gender, about what it means to have sex as their gender. Like, what are the pressures that they've taken in growing
Mm,
up?
mm.
And then that gives you an idea of like what your belief system is and what your value system is that's informing this. And then we take a step and we're like, okay, so that's what you got going on. Do you still want to carry this? Are there certain parts that you want to like take away, edit, add? You're an adult now, or you're a human in a different form, or
Right.
this is a different version of you. You get to choose. So it's looking at what belief systems and then trying to challenge that if necessary.
Oh, heavy. Because that's what I'm
Yeah.
undergoing in therapy right now, David. Like,
Uh-huh.
I'm going through like my childhood and
Oh,
unpacking
I
my
see.
childhood trauma.
Yeah.
I've been open about this on the pod, so it's not going to be new to the listeners, but I am currently in therapy for an overwhelming sense of worthlessness. And
Mm.
I feel that that can be or that can translate into the bedroom, like,
Yeah.
where I just zone out or something,
Okay.
where I just like am not in the moment, and then I don't know, I get soft sometimes because I thought about I don't know, my teachers doing like awful stuff and like punishing me, and
Yeah.
for having a bad grade or something like that. Not true, but you know what I mean, right?
As in, yeah.
Yeah. So d- does that mean that I have some sort of sexual anxiety, like when I'm just dissociating? Because that doesn't feel like anxious to me.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's a dissociation that sounds like it's happening, right? A tuning out, and so then it would be like, okay, what is encouraging that tuning out? What's going on right before that happens that kicks it into gear, essentially?
Oh, like you're trying to pinpoint to the trigger.
Exactly. Yeah, because there's
Wow.
information there, right? Like there's
Yeah.
information that something came up.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
I got to figure out what comes up whenever I do that. I mean, there's also the fact that I spent 4 years as an escort, and that
Mm.
was my way of trying to find my sense of self-worth, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
the only way I can be deemed as a worthy human being is if I am a fuckable human being, and I might as well capitalize on that. So I'm going to try to get as many clients as possible, and dollars equals worth. And I'm
Right.
like, Yeah, holy shit.
Mm.
So that's what I'm undergoing in therapy right now.
I'm glad that, yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you have that process, right? It can be really, really helpful to unpack that. And it can be really tender, and it can be exhausting at times, and it can be wonderful at
Yes.
times. And yeah,
Sex is exhausting and wonderful at times. But
yeah, yeah.
goddamn. So premature ejaculation, sexual anxiety. Are there some other things that can arise in the
Yeah,
bedroom?
yeah, pain during sex, because that can be related to either trauma, or that can be anxiety causing the muscles to really tense up and
Mm-hmm.
not allowing for being a receptive partner. I do consider like dissociation a part of like sex anxiety because of, and that can be a variety of reasons. And then beyond that, it can also look like avoidance, like not wanting to date or not wanting to fuck because you're not wanting to hit that issue, right? Or it can be like, I don't know, I have a love-hate relationship with the term hypersexuality, because it does have like a,
Yeah. It feels
you know what I mean?
very policey puritanical and just like
Right,
something coined by prudes.
right. Like what makes it hyper? And I still use it because I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. It's just like, okay, there's more to it that would make it bad or make it impact you or have a negative effect than just it being hyper. But that can be a result of anxiety. It's
Right.
like,
So,
you know.
yeah. So, thank you for segueing me into the next part of this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
which is hypersexuality, aka sex addiction, aka
Mm-hmm.
compulsive sexual behavior.
Right.
So, I guess we should just stick to hypersexuality, just as a umbrella term. So,
Right. Okay.
with hypersexuality, I have a problem with that because, like I previously said, it feels very policey, and it feels like it was coined by prude sexual researchers who are like, "You're having too much sex. That's weird." And my take on this is that I don't believe that hypersexuality or compulsive sexual behavior is real, mostly because I don't believe in pathologizing human sexuality, because
Right.
it feels almost puritanical to label something so natural, such as
Mm-hmm.
sexual behavior, as a disease. So it like brings up this question of, where does the person stop and where does the disease begin?
Mm-hmm.
So
Great.
my question that I want to lead into is it actually a real thing? Sex addiction, hypersexuality, or compulsive sexual behavior?
Yeah, this is like a great question and an ongoing question of like, what's the line, right? And who
Yeah.
gets to say what that line is? And my firm belief is, and it's not even that binary. I was going to say my firm belief is that the client or the person gets to say, but then again, we then look at, okay, what's informing them in, like, were they raised in a highly religious
Mm,
household? It would not be that high for them to go into the realm of hypersexuality, right?
mm,
Or like
mm.
addiction or whatever. And so again, we look at, okay, what's informing them, what's telling them that this is bad. Like, I was raised Catholic and Muslim, and the Catholic part of me definitely got messages that like sex was bad, masturbation was bad, sex before marriage was bad. um,
I was told if I
and
masturbated, I'd go blind. Like, no,
right.
I
But
want
how
to
can I watch the
see.
porn?
I know, I want to see all the dicks.
And so we look at, how is it causing a problem for you? How is it causing a problem for you? How do you define that? I'm not going to say, okay, just because you skipped out on work a couple times to fuck or to masturbate, I'm not going to be like, okay, stamp, you're a problem now. But we just look at the larger picture, like what's going on to cause that. Then we look at, okay, what is the sex being used for, or what's it in service of, and is there other ways that you can get that, just to again diversify your repertoire?
Mm.
Because what if, for whatever reason, you can't have sex anymore? That would make it really hard to cope with anxiety or cope with whatever you're using it to cope with.
Oh, okay. So that's the only point where it becomes a problem, is like when you use this, whether it be a substance or a sex, you use it to not only feel more good, but to feel less bad.
Yeah, and that's one way that I define it, right? And again, it's not then saying, okay, therefore it's a bad thing. It's just like, okay, we're just understanding what's your relationship to sex and what's it
Okay.
doing for you, and does it still need to be that way? Are some guys that I work with that the way they put it is like, I want to look at my relationship to anonymous sex. That approach, I'm like, great, because then it's not this guide of, we're not forced to look at do more or do less. It's just like, we're just looking at it and we're exploring what's it doing for you.
Right. So what does a healthy relationship with sex look like?
That's a really good and hard question to answer. I think you get to define that, right?
Right. What are some of the ways that we can use, like, I guess a better question is, what are the green flags to look for when it comes to our relationship with sex?
So I think it's like knowing yourself, knowing your needs, your boundaries, what you like, what you don't like. Emily Nagoski, who wrote "Come as You Are,"
Love
talked
that
about.
book. Love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Amazing.
And one of the things I really like about that book, among many, many, many things, is that you have your accelerator and you have your brakes,
Mhm.
and it's really important to know both. Sometimes people will know one or the other. And so it's just really, to go back to what's a green flag, it's like really having an understanding of what you're doing and why you're doing it, and if it's still fulfilling your needs. I really like, there's a sex therapist in San Diego. His name is Doug Braun Harvey, and he talks a lot about out of control sex behavior. And the way that he works on it is that he helps people identify what their values are for themselves, and then works on, okay, is all these things that you're doing, does that match your value system? And I love that approach mainly because we're not telling them what their value system is. We're not telling them why they should be doing it. It's like, okay, we're guiding you to understand who you are, and then you decide. And I've done really wonderful work with that. And people that I've worked with have done wonderful work with that, because doesn't go into the shame of like, okay, I need to repress this feeling. This is bad. This is bad that I want to fuck. This is bad that I like anonymous sex. This is bad that I like this porn or whatever. It doesn't go that way. It's like, okay, why? Why do I like that? And then you go on from there.
We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Yes.
Hey, you sick motherfuckers! I've got a special treat for you. Need a new toy to spice up your sex life? Head over to loveshop.ca/sexedwithtim and get yourself a cock ring, a dildo, a vibrator, or even a life-sized sex doll. Damn, I guess love really does come in all shapes and sizes. Get 15% off your entire order when you use code SEXEDWITHTIM at checkout. They're shipping to all of Canada and the United States because North America is horny. That's loveshop.ca/sexedwithtim and use code SEXEDWITHTIM for 15% off your entire purchase. Happy orgasm! Do you like feeling sexy and looking sexy? Of course you do. Only my listeners are sexy as fuck. I have partnered with fetishwear designer Dale Kuda to bring you the hottest deals on custom jock straps, harnesses, hats, and more. Head over to dalekuda.com, that's DALEKUDA.com, and use code SEXEDWITHTIM at checkout for 25% off the entire store. Yeah, you heard me. 25% off. And cherry on top, free shipping. Oh my god. I have a few of the stuff that he has made for me, and girl, I'm wearing it right now. I'm wearing like a little jock strap so that I could easily just like slip a little butt plug or dildo every now and then here and there. And I'm on the train, I'm just like, thank you, Dale. That's dalekuda.com with the code SEXEDWITHTIM for 25% off your entire purchase with free shipping. With a deal like that, I swear I could come buckets, honey.
The show is about to begin.
Yes.
What are the ways in which we can embrace the parts of ourselves that we're so ashamed of? For example, watching too much porn, or we believe is too much porn, when it's not actually a problem. Like, I watch porn once a day and I masturbate once a night just to get myself to sleep, and then that's great. But some people would see that as problematic, and I feel like being fed that message would start to seep into my psyche and think, oh my god, that's a problem. But I internally believe that, that's normal. So how do I get to that sense of like embracing that it's okay for me to masturbate once a day? It's fine.
Yeah. It's challenging, questioning, being curious with the other end of that statement. It's masturbating every night is a problem. Why? Why is it a problem? Who says it's a problem? What does it impact? Does it? And for some people, masturbating every night means that when it comes time to be with their partner, they're not really able to be fully present or be present in the way that they want to because their libido is not as high. And so we look at ways for them to adjust that. And again, it's not me saying this is the number of times that you masturbate. It's them figuring out their system. But yeah, we're looking at like what's informing that belief, because it can be such a, I don't know, the way that moral panic works, it makes it so certain and undeniable.
It works in absolute
masturbation. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so harsh. Like, sex is bad, but like, sex feels so good. What about it is making it so bad? I don't get it.
Right. Why was it so policed? Why is it continuing to be policed?
Right. So it's up to the individual then to interrogate those beliefs then, if they believe that it is causing a problem.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Because nobody can do the work for you but you.
Exactly. Yeah, I know.
Can I just pay my therapist to cure me of all my anxiety?
Please. Yeah.
Please, for $140 an hour, it better be worth it. Okay, so those are some of the green flags, like being aware of the roots of your problem, the roots of your sexual problems, and knowing that, sorry, not sexual problems, but rather sexual behavior, and just having this good, cohesive relationship with the parts of you that are affecting your sexual behavior. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Just having like a clear understanding. Well, yeah, that's awesome.
Perfect. I'm a therapist now.
There you go. Stamped. Yep.
Now, what about the red flags? When can we start seeing these problems? Or rather, what are some of the things I should look out for that could cause sexual anxiety or hypersexuality, quote unquote?
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I want my caveat of like, it's a case by case basis. This isn't me naming it for other people, but just kind of things that I look for and can be looked out for. Some of the big ones would be like excessive worrying or worrying a lot about, so in the anxious part, it's like worrying a lot about like performance or how they're going to look, how they feel about themselves, how they think other people are going to see them. It's like the social anxiety piece. So a lot of like churning around in your head of like worries of, I'm not going to be big enough. I'm not going to be hard enough. My partner's not going to like me. Those type of worry, like it affects the self-esteem. Dissociation or just not being totally present can be a piece. A hyper focus on like, guys that have a concern around ED or erectile dysfunction, they can get really hyper focused on their dick and how hard it is and how fast it can get hard. And then obviously or not so obvious to some is that will kind of almost guarantee anxiety and guarantee that it's not going to perform or you're not going to get as hard as you want because it's just that pressure, right? And then, again, it's like the making decisions that you later regret, and then you later regret it because
it doesn't align with your values.
Yeah. Yeah. But not because of like what you've been told you should or shouldn't do.
I've done that way too many times where I walk out of a guy's apartment like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. He had an air mattress. That should have been the first red flag.
I wouldn't. Yeah.
I told myself I wouldn't do this again. Mom would be so ashamed of me. No, but like, there have been some times where I did feel that like that shame of coming out of a hookup because it didn't align with my values. So I have to ask myself, why did I do that? Like, I guess I can tell you this, David. He's not going to know, but like, one of my fuck buddies is like an out and proud Republican. When we have sex, he leaves Fox News on the TV.
Okay.
And that is so completely opposite of my values. So is that like me projecting something, or like what's going on there? Not to make it into a mini therapy session, but like just as an example, like having
Yeah.
sex that's contradictory to our own belief system.
Do you mind if I ask you questions about this?
Yeah, like why would someone or me do something like
Uh-huh.
that, have sex with this sort of willful blindness that, like, I
Right.
know this isn't the right thing to do because it's so against everything I believe in, but I'm still gonna do it.
Yeah.
Why is
So I
that?
think, I think I think of taboo, like taboo is very sexy. Like, there's a great saying by a guy who ran a. This is gonna sound really weird. A guy who ran a breakfast shop in New York City. He said it's like putting your dick in a banana split sundae. You're not supposed to do it, but it feels really good.
Very
And
American
sometimes,
Pie, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and so sometimes, and I can also see like a excitement or a power differential in there, or like you have power over the Republican fuck buddy because of I don't know if he's out or whatnot, but that
He's
can
out.
be okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Um.
he's strange about it. But that's a different
Uh-huh.
conversation. But
Uh-huh.
yeah.
There can be lots of reasons to kind of hit the edge of taboo or what's not supposed to be. I'm curious if like, are you tuning out the Fox News while it's playing,
Yes.
or yeah?
Whenever
Do you
I
try to tell them like, hey, can we
turn it off,
try
no.
MSNBC or no?
Actually, I'd rather have no TV at all. Just
I know,
like,
I'm kidding.
why can't you just keep the house music like bumping, please? And
Yeah,
like, I've told other people this, and they're always like, "Tim, why?" But I'm like, I'm fucking his dick, not his politics.
Are you there? Okay, so you can get focused.
But like, so I guess for me, that's not necessarily a problem, is it?
Mhm.
Because it even if it is so contradictory to who I am as a person, is it really just the taboo nature of it that's making me feel like attracted to that act?
Yeah, and there might be more to it about who he is as a person, what he reminds you of, maybe he's like really into a certain type of sex act that you're not really able to try out with other
Oh
people.
God, let's not
Maybe
make this daddy issues now, David. Oh my
okay.
God.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. But yeah, I think there's so much more to it than just him being Republican and having a dick. That like there might be more to it than that, and that's the big piece that we can look at and be like, oh, okay, that's the big discrepancy or the big gap.
He is 9 inches, so he keeps saying big. I'm like, pun intended.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not something to be ashamed of then. Totally
Right.
not.
Yeah. I mean, and there's also like there can be sexiness and conflict. There can be a really like allure and attraction and wildness in having a different set of beliefs, or like hate fucking. Is a term,
Yes.
right? And there can be a lot of like intense energy in that. So that could be part of it. But again, I don't want to say I know.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's not even considered hate fucking because we've said "I love you" to each other.
Oh, sweet, yeah. And so like,
and it's weird.
That could just be like
to me.
Even
though
some
it's
of your
genuine.
friends.
No, it's genuine that I actually do care about this guy, even though he's so diametrically opposite politically. Like he believes in something called reverse racism, and I'm like,
got it.
But I still want to have sex with you, and I care about you so much. Like I went to this guy in the hospital.
Like, wow, yeah, you do care. Yeah,
I do care, right?
Yeah.
So, am I fucked up? The answer is yes.
Okay.
I will accept no other answers.
In the loveliest way possible. Right.
Oh my God. All right. So I want to go back again to what I am still so on the fence of, which is compulsive sexual behavior, because I find that as or rather sex addiction, I want to define what exactly makes something an addiction.
There's a few ways to define it. Like the very like singular way of defining it, the big way of defining it is the physical addiction, where you go through the withdrawal and like the chemical dependency sort of thing. But with like sex or food or things like that, or work, it's more of the way that I think of it becoming a problem is, I can have a very addictive relationship to work, and I can get really irritable and frustrated if I'm not doing a work project that I want to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's a problem. To me, that's like, okay, David, come on, really? You can't fucking stay away from work for a day to, do.
You're working like a 16-hour day or something.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And so, looking at the potential problem in the relationship is, if you can't get access to it, does it cause a lot of distress? Can you cope without it? And again, just because you say yes doesn't make it a problem, because that can mean lots of things, but it's trying to kind of fill in the picture of,
right.
Yeah, no. Attachment.
Right. Because the reason I have a problem with sex being called an addiction is because, like you said, the lack of access to it makes you feel a sort of anxiety. Because when I picture addiction, I picture alcohol, food, drugs,
right,
which are all easily accessible. But like sex, that you can't just pick up a random stranger on the street to get your fix in the middle of the workday and then go on about, right? I mean, I can, but I work in the financial district,
right, some can. Right, it's plentiful. Yeah,
plenty of closeted men for me at my disposal. But you know what I mean? It's like, it's not that same kind of access that we get from like drugs or food or alcohol. So that's where I have a problem with sex addiction being called an addiction. Unless that's how the DSM defines it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've talked to people where they're very rigid in how they define sex addiction. It's almost like they feel like if you look at porn more than once a whatever, and that's the problem, is like others define it for you, like, and the definition changes all the time. What is too much porn? Is it multiple times a day, every day, once a week, once a month? People have confessed being addicted to porn when they've looked at once a month, but that's more of just a thing about their morality and like what is about how they were raised. Right.
So really, this whole kind of conversation with sex being an addiction, it's just like it makes me so unsettled whenever I hear, a therapist that specializes in sex addiction, and I'm like, really? Is that a real? You know what I mean? It's hard for me to explain, but it feels almost as if you're trying to cure something that doesn't need any sort of cure.
Right. Yeah, like, again, who makes it a problem? Who considers it a problem?
Right.
And I've come across that issue of like, how do and I don't even know what's on my website now, but I go back and forth. I mostly stay away from putting sex addiction on my website, but I also know that that's what people look for. And then it's like it does feel like a trap in a way, because then they come to me and I'm like, but also let's look at another way. It's not really addiction. Let's,
Right. But on your website right now, it does say compulsive sexual behavior.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what are the signs to look for when it comes to CSB?
Yeah, again, it's like just a big focus on getting sex, having sex, avoiding other responsibilities because of it. And again, it's like your own responsibilities. A lot of fixation on it, going against your values, going against your commitments or agreements, kind of having a secrecy to it. I think that's also a big integrator. Is like, is there a shameful, and they define what the shame is, secret life. And then why are they having that secret life? Is it because they know that they're going against agreements, or because they are policed for who they are? Are they closeted, or are they just cheating on their partner and going against agreements?
Is a violation of boundaries considered part of this hypersexual behavior, CSB?
It can be. Yeah.
It can be. Because I don't want to just diagnose every single guy that flirts my way and says, "Oh my God, you're a sex addict." Ugh.
Right. And that's the thing, is like, we're not looking at one thing and being like, "Oh, there it is. Now you're a sex addict." And again, what that title, but we're looking at like a group of things that the person is doing.
How do you
and a
go
combination
about
of that.
how do you go about remedying quote unquote sex addiction?
I would ask them to the piece that they're trying to understand or adjust. So, like, um, it could be opening up Grinder, and not just because Grinder is bad, but because their relationship to Grinder is going to anonymous sex, and they don't want anonymous sex.
But Grindr sucks so bad. It's just a bad
It
app.
does. It's not.
Ugh.
I know.
It's
There's
a
many
poorly
others out
designed
there.
app. From a user design standpoint, but like, anyways. No, but yeah, the main purpose of Grindr is to have anonymous sex, as we have all established as a culture. But yeah.
And so then it's looking at, okay, let's slow down that moment before and try to understand what's happening for you. And even if you pause for 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes, that is different than what you were doing before. Like, I used to smoke. I loved cigarettes. I dream of smoking cigarettes. I want a cigarette right now. Just
Don't
saying
mean to trigger you with my e-cig.
how dare you? How dare you, Tim? No.
Oh, that's sweet nicotine. I'm kidding.
Uh-huh.
I get it. I stopped smoking when I was 16, so it's been...
Yeah, right. No, there's an old John Waters pre-film clip where he's like, "You're not allowed to smoke in the theaters anymore," and then he pulls out a cigarette and lights it and smokes it. And
I love that.
Isn't it a shame? But the way that I worked on trying to quit many times it took me, but was to just slow down the time that I had my craving for a cigarette, and then the time I actually had the cigarette. And so it would be the same thing. It's like, okay, when you're craving dick, then slow yourself down and be like, okay, is it because I actually want to fuck, or is it because I'm not feeling so great and I want to avoid that feeling?
Oh my God, avoidance.
But I also want to say that, like, just because you're avoiding a bad feeling and using sex to do it on its own doesn't make it a bad thing. We're looking at patterns.
Yes, I wanted to say that because it's like avoidance in itself is not necessarily a negative thing, and using sex to sate that fear is not I don't think is necessarily a bad thing.
No,
you know, but like it feels like we have like painted it in a negative light. We as in like we as a people, you know, and I don't like that.
Yeah, there's a blog post that I did called "Using Sex to Soothe," and it talks about how sex is a wonderful way to soothe many things. And just because you're doing it doesn't make it a bad thing. But when you should look at it as, again, if it's a pattern, if it's your go-to, if it's the main way that you are soothing, just like anything else, just like gummy bears, or it's my go-to.
Or drugs.
You know, it's like
gummy
or
bears.
drugs or whatever. Yeah,
Skittles for me. Oh my God. So, okay. Sex to use as a self-soothing mechanism is not necessarily a bad thing, but if it starts to get in the way of your life, where it's like you're skipping out on meetings and you're saying goodbye to friends, or like you flake out on your obligations, that's when it becomes a little bit of a problem, where it's like, let's take a step back and see what the fuck is causing us to open up Grindr or Scruff or whatever and just like find the nearest dick with you and just go, oh, man. Must suck if you're a bottom with a sex addiction, because you got to be clean 24/7.
Right. Yeah. Lots of fiber pills.
Yeah, you have your Metamucil and your Purimen with you at all times. Eat absolutely nothing. Develop an eating disorder.
Right.
Oh my God, no, that would suck. Okay, so it is very important to look at literally that split second. Take a step back and look at that split second between yourself and like the moment that you start to feel that urge or that craving, and see what is it so worried about, or why are you resorting to this? Is there something that you're scared of? Is there something that you're afraid of? Trying to it's normally a source of anxiety, though. Is that correct?
Or you mean as what they're avoiding or what they're moving away from? Yeah, it could be anxiety or depression or grief or trauma.
Oh man.
That's why it's a really it's complicated, right? That's
it's
why
so
the people that say
this
binary absolute thing about sex, I'm like, I call bullshit.
Yeah, thank you.
Know what I mean? There's so many,
there's so many things, because sex is so like complicated in itself that like There's no way for us to police or to make it like this binary language of like sex should be this, sex should be that. And it's like, I don't know where to put sex in my life. Is it good? Is it bad?
Right. Yeah.
So it's up to the individual.
The positive of that is then people can take that the tabooness and the moral stamping of not good or of bad, and then making it sexy and kinky and fun, and kind of reclaiming it as their own use of pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you so much for saying that. Pleasure. We always forget about the whole pleasure aspect of things,
right?
Because, like when we talk about sex in a therapeutic standpoint, we're like, are you using it to avoid? Are you using it to soothe? But like, how about just use it to feel good about yourself?
You just feel good. Yeah. And that's perfect. Yeah. Right. And why can't we talk? Yeah. There's a great book called Pleasure Activism that talks about access to pleasure and who gets access and how it's policed. And it's a great book because there's a lot to it. And people sometimes think it's a very simple thing, but sexual pleasure is very much policed, especially if you're not like a cis hetero guy. Cis hetero white guy. Yeah.
Oh, that's a slur on the show, David. Cis hetero straight. Ew. So really, the only way to, I guess, not so much recover. That word feels a little too medical to me. But the only way to be at peace with the parts of your sexual self is through therapy. There's no sort of like medication or anything, is there?
Right. Yeah, it's self-exploration in whatever realm that could be. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I do want to get into some listener questions here. I've got two. This one, first one is from Instagram. Hi, Tim. Thanks so much for your show. Love it. Got a question for you. I'm unable to create and maintain strong relationships with gay men. I find it easier to hook up with them than to date them. Is that wrong? Is there something wrong with me?
Yeah, that's a common question that I hear. Like whether it's gay men with other men or men with other men. I run men's groups, and a big part of that is it's helping with the loneliness and isolation because they're able to kind of have this facilitated space to talk together and be open together and practice vulnerability. It sounds like it's a problem to this person because they're bringing it up, or they've been told it's a problem, and maybe it's a problem for them because they are longing for that type of emotional intimacy with other gay men that doesn't involve sex. And so I would ask them, like, why does it feel like a problem to you? What do you feel like you're longing or missing by not having this? What would it be like? And then exploring different ways that they can, exploring different ways that they can try to be in those circles or in settings where there's opportunity to have more kind of hanging out with other gay men, and then trying to explore what that's like for them. Like in retrospect, was there anxiety? Was there,
Yeah, I feel for this listener because I too have a problem with creating and maintaining strong, intimate relationships with other gay men. I know why, though. It's because a lot of the trauma in my life is caused by men, I was molested by a family relative. I was raped by my first boyfriend. I was drugged by a stranger at a gay bar. So it's very hard for me to create all those
totally
those strong bonds. But I'm just assuming that didn't happen to this listener. So are they just like afraid of creating strong, intimate relationships just because?
Could be. Yeah, I mean, it could be something that doesn't show up in other parts of their lives. Again, it's hard for me to know based on this part, but like, does it show up in other parts of their life or just men? And why men? Is it because of trauma, or is it because of lack of practice, lack of practice of relating to other men?
Because you just see them as a sexual goal or an object rather than a fucking person.
Right. Yeah.
Guess what? Men are people too, as much as I hate to say it.
I know.
Oh god. All right. I think we have time for one more question here. This comes from Twitter. Hey Tim, I'm a top and I'm in an open relationship with my husband, but for some reason I can't get hard when I have sex with other guys. Is that
Mhm.
erectile dysfunction? What's wrong?
Yeah, I would start to think of that as the technical term would be like psychogenic erectile dysfunction, or psychological erectile dysfunction. So it's not like physically he's able to get hard, right? He's getting hard with his husband. He's getting hard while he masturbates in the morning when he wakes up, all that good stuff. And so then it's a situational psychological erectile dysfunction issue. And again, then it would be breaking down, all right, what's happening for you that's amping up that anxiety in that moment? What beliefs do you have of yourself that you need to stay hard or get hard right away, or that maybe you're also something that I've been talking to with some guys is maybe you're not a one night stand kind of guy, and that's okay. Maybe
Oh,
you do need that like warm
that
up and
emotional
that time together.
intimacy.
Right,
Oh.
maybe, and then they're trying to do the one night stands or the hookups, and they're just not able to get hard or be present, and they're beating themselves up because they have this standard that they should be doing this.
Mm-hmm,
And I say,
mm-hmm.
well, maybe that's just not you, and that's not a
That's
problem.
fine,
That's
right? Yeah, yeah,
yeah, that's just, and it's better to know how you work
right.
and accept that than try to square peg round hole sort of thing.
Right. Because for me, I've had this like change in my sexuality. Uh, when I was younger, like early 20s, I can fuck anybody, just like anything with a
Uh,
hole, anything with a pulse. Let's go. Every hole is a
yeah.
goal. Come down. Blah. But now, as I approach my 30s, I feel that in order for me to have the sex that I want and the sex that I believe is good sex, I need some form of emotional intimacy there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can have a one night stand, but at least like talk to me or something, Don't just
Mm-hmm.
don't just avoid eye contact. Tell
Right.
me like I'm fucking you really well. Tell me how you receive
Yeah.
me, And I believe that emotional intimacy is a huge part of great sex. That's just my personal belief. But maybe this listener might subconsciously share that belief too, where they need some sort of emotional intimacy and they can't do the one night stands anymore because he has a husband.
Yeah. There's something going on that's making it difficult for him to get an erection, and so that could be needing more intimacy. It could be slowing things down a bit, letting his nervous system come into play. Like typically, we need the parasympathetic nervous system to kick into gear to stay aroused and get aroused, and that's what's called the rest and digest. And your heart rate goes down, your muscles are relaxed. You know, there's a
Do
production
your
of
square
saliva.
breathing, inhale,
Exactly. Yep.
hold,
Uh-huh.
exhale,
Yep.
hold. Oh my God, I love it.
And then, but the anxiety kicks us into the fight or flight, which then impacts being able to get hard, for the most part.
Right.
And so it could also be, okay, maybe he's anxious just because of a variety of reasons. And so if we look at the physical symptoms of anxiety, maybe that'll allow him to be more hard and present.
Mm-hmm.
Present and hard. I don't know.
The hardness is a present.
Yeah.
I get it. I have tried to get hard inside a crack house. It is close to impossible. This guy literally
Not the right
shot up.
ambiance.
Yeah, this guy literally shot up right in front of me right before we had sex, and I'm like, damn, I'm very uncomfortable right now. So let's see how well I can do this.
Well, and then the other piece that I would say to this guy is, what other types of sex can you have that doesn't involve your dick? And
Yes!
what other types of...
Exactly. Non-penetrative.
And my big... Yeah, right. Like, yes, dicks are wonderful. There's lots of nerve endings. It feels wonderful. But there's also, a lot of the rest of you available.
Your entire body is a sexual
Your entire body.
palace,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a wonderful... What is that? The other... a smorgasbord of delight was the term I used. It just... So there's other parts... So I would recommend also looking at what are some other parts of your body that feels erogenous? Is it your neck? Is it your nipples? Is it your ass? Is it your shoulders?
Back of your knee,
is it ear? Yeah.
Your armpit.
Right.
Gays love an armpit.
But there's a whole topography, a whole map to explore.
Yeah.
So try to go away from that rest stop. Go away from that old vacation spot that you go
Yeah,
to.
you have a whole sexual charcuterie board right at your disposal. I think that's such a great way to end this conversation, that it's up to you to figure out what works for you, what doesn't, and embrace those parts of who you are. But if nobody got anything from this conversation, David, do you have any parting words of wisdom?
I just really love it when people have community and find, the people that they can really feel like they're themselves with. So I hope people can have that. That's my very warm ending. Is I like community. I love people for the most part. There's some assholes out there, but
There's a lot.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
But always
know your people, know your tribe.
Exactly, know your people, know your tribe, and to parrot that platitude, it's gonna get better. It will get better. David, do you have anything to plug? Please make a butt and plug away anything that you want the audience to find.
So my therapy practice is Rouse Relational Wellness in San Francisco in California, and so we offer therapy services in San Francisco in person or in California on the web. But we also do educational workshops. So one is that I have a workbook called Sex Warriors, a mindfully queer guide to sex and anxiety for men. And it's a workbook that you can go through and at your own pace and figure out how anxiety impacts you in particular, and B, how to work on that for yourself, and then C, how to talk about it with a partner. That's on rouseacademy.com. And also what's there is some other workshops around sex anxiety, both how to talk about it and then also points of focus like survivors of intimate partner violence. And I'm going to be doing a workshop soon on working with queer men.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David. And for anyone that didn't catch that, I will put that all in the show notes. Thank you so much for making it. Tim. Thank you so much, David. You are amazing.
Yeah. This is wonderful. This is really sweet. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. And to all the listeners that made it this far into this chaotic ass conversation, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Sex Ed with Tim podcast. Please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. And I will see you at the next episode. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Sex Ed with Tim podcast. Sex Ed with Tim is created and produced by me, Tim Lagman. Music is Aces High by Kevin MacLeod. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at GaySlutClown and at Sex Ed with Tim. You can also like and follow me on the Sex Ed with Tim Facebook page. If you enjoyed the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for all your support, you dirty little slut. Mwah.